a movie like this is not often recognized, a monster movie,
Yeah.
ostensibly, but that, of course, that wasn't, we weren't all thinking about, oh, we're just making a monster movie, we're trying to make something more. So that's why it feels nice to be heard and seen.
Prey will be available on 4K, Blu-ray, and DVD on October 3rd. And this happens over a year after it premiered on Hulu. So what was your reaction when you learned that Prey was getting a physical release?
Ecstatic.
Yeah.
I and even beyond just the idea of like, oh, and now it's a piece of physical media, and now people's box sets can be complete.
Yeah.
I flip for being able to provide all these special features. Because for me, growing up, wanting to be a filmmaker, and even just being fascinated about movies and how they're made, DVD commentaries and behind the scenes and all that kind of stuff, um, taught me as much about filmmaking
Mhm.
that film school eventually would. So I love that I'm now able to put something out there, on the level of what I absorbed so much of growing up.
Yeah, I got a chance to. I have the physical copy, and I was able to watch the movie through audio commentary and as well as see the deleted scenes. And one of the deleted scenes is the alternate opening, and it's something that you talked about in the audio commentary. So, ultimately, what made you want to change the opening to the film?
In large part, it was really focusing the story on Nadu and her brother. The original opening was a bit more about her place in the band, and what's going on with the other guys, and it was just not quite as focused on her and Taabee, and we added a little bit of humor
Yeah,
to it, and which is just important very early on to get a sense of like, okay, I can have fun with this movie, in the smallest of ways, but I think the smallest changes are sometimes the most effective ones. So that stuff really fed into changing the opening.
of course. And another deleted scene that's shown on the physical copy is the treetop chase, and that's in
Yeah.
previs. And I think it was really cool to see. So I'm pretty sure you had to cut your share of scenes throughout the film. Is that the one that stands out to you? Because again, it was kind of cool to see how that could have played out.
Yeah, that, I mean, that's another one, like the share previs is something you don't often get to see as a movie
Right.
fan. It's something that filmmaker we it's a medium we work in all the time.
Mhm.
And no one at home gets to see that kind of thing. So on the one hand, just servicing that was cool, just serving that up was cool. And on the other, yeah, that, I mean, that was a big, that's a big one. It's the biggest one we cut, and we were actually starting to construct the set, and our schedule was getting squeezed,
Mhm.
our budget was getting squeezed, and in the back of my mind I was always really nervous about that sequence of being able to, it was a really narrow runway to land onto, and not have that feel goofy and not having it feel aesthetically so different from what is otherwise a very grounded aesthetic for the movie. As much as I loved to the idea of, the predator's always up in those trees and putting another, the hero up there with him, and having a chase unfold that way, and I loved the way that Nato uses the cut clamp, one of the predator's weapons, in that sequence. Um, and that's why I'm glad that it now exists on the disc for people to see. But at the time, I sort of used it as a bargaining chip when I needed other things to
Yeah.
happen as well, and we were getting squeezed on those. I was like, you know what? What if I lost the treetop? Like, everyone thought I really cared about the treetop scene,
Mm.
and I realized, when I realized that I don't, as much as these other things that are more narratively essential. I sort of let that one go and then was able to free up room to put time and money into some of our other sequences that were more important.
Of course. And a part of the audio commentary is Amber Midthunder, who plays Naru. Um, when she first auditioned for the role, did you know immediately she was the one you were looking for?
I kind of did,
Yeah.
yeah. We had this lovely casting director, Renee Haynes, who specializes in finding Native American First Nations talent,
Yeah.
and Amber was one of the first people that I saw, and I saw a number of lovely people, of awesome folks, but Amber really, um, I felt like she just sort of quote unquote got it right away.
Mhm.
And then later we screen tested with her, and she delivered, a dialogue scene without speaking any words. And this
Yeah.
movie is so nonverbal that was just absolutely essential, and it was incredibly moving to watch her perform that scene. And then doing all the physical stuff that we had during our screen test, she wasn't just kind of like running and jumping and showing, oh, I can do physical things. She was storytelling within the sequence. So it just made it inevitable that it was going to be her.
Of course. And another cast member, Dan DeLegro, plays the Predator, and I believe that was his first movie role. So, what were your impressions of him portraying? He was an iconic character, but kind of different in the same way.
Dane, yeah,
Dan DeLegro.
Dane DeLegro.
Yeah, excuse me.
Is it his first movie? I guess it is. Um, Doing creature stuff. Yeah, he's incredible. He was a pro athlete, and brought that mentality to um the work ethic that it takes to be a creature, because it's very physically challenging. Um, in surprising ways. You need to work out specific muscles of the body. You need to hone in on what the suit demands. And this suit in particular was a lot of weight on the head and the neck, because the eye holes were in the neck. So when the predator is looking forward, which is its primary position, the actor, Dane, is looking down at the ground.
Mm.
So all of these performances, where he's being physically dominant and ferocious, he's staring at the ground and kind of memorizing a path to move through, and puppeteering the body. It's not just moving the body; it's puppeteering the suit in some regard, and working in concert with the guys on the remote controls that are actually puppeteering the mandibles and the eyes and all that stuff. So, yeah, he really rose to the occasion, and was able to hone in on a very specific personality of this predator creature that's a little bit different than the ones we've seen, um, and was able to give us our best shot at getting these sequences because of what he was able to put his body through physically.
Of course, yeah, Dane did a really great job, and um, during the audio commentary, you talked about playing video games and how that inspired you throughout this film. You know, the Predator series, they've had its share of video games in the past. So, do you think Prey would make a good video game?
Of course I do. I mean, ironically though, there's a several video games that are adjacent to Prey.
Yeah.
But I do think we have not, and we played a lot of Predator Hunting Grounds
Mhm.
in the and during the prep phase of the movie. In fact, the physical idea of the prey when he jumps from tree to tree, there's moments where he sort of puts his gauntlet in and slides down onto a branch and then keeps going. That came from playing Hunting Grounds. That's in the
Mhm.
physicality of how the predator moves from tree to tree in that game. But I still think that we've yet to see the greatest Predator video game, and I think
Mhm.
there's some awesome potential there.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So hopefully that's developed pretty soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that you mentioned in the commentary is you talked about how Prey was going to be spoken in all Comanche, but eventually it started that way, but it went into English. So what made you come to that decision when it comes to not having it in Comanche, but in English instead?
Um, well, I think in some regard it was just of interest to the release of the movie from the studio and stuff that
Yeah.
that it be um primarily in English, but everyone's still wanting to find a way that we could feature the Comanche language as best we could. And also the movie just has a very um tricky relationship with language.
Yeah.
In there are several in the movie. And we always wanted the film to feel linked to Naru's perspective in particular. And so that kind of led us down the avenue of it being uh primarily in English, but putting together a Comanche language track that is also on the disc, that was there on Hulu and also on release of the film and is also on the disc. And and thanks to our producer Jane Myers and um, this guy Narcomi, who's a sort of primary a Comanche language historian and teacher. We were able to put together this version of the film that where all the actors came back and delivered this Comanche language version that not only works as a really as sort of the most authentic version of the movie and the initial instinct for the film, but also as a preservation of the language that really does need to be preserved.
Absolutely. And, when it comes to the accolades of Prey, it has earned a total of 6 Emmy nominations, including Outstanding Television Movie and Outstanding Directing in a Limited Anthology Series or Movie. Did you ever think this film would earn multiple Emmy nominations?
No. Short answer, no.
Right.
I did not think that, but it's very heartwarming
Yeah.
to get that kind of validation, not only just for the hard work that everyone put into the movie, but also for a genre film, like this. Usually awards don't go towards genre or even just in nomination. It's like a movie like this is not often recognized, a monster movie,
Yeah.
ostensibly, but that, of course, we weren't all thinking about, oh, we're just making a monster movie. We're trying to make something more. So that's why it feels nice to be heard and seen.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Prey is just so different from the other Predator films that I think because of that, it's earned that attention. And I think the Academy has saw that, and I think it's well deserved that it's earned multiple Emmy nominations. So, and that leads to my last question. What does the future hold for the Prey or Predator franchise? Would you like to see follow up to Prey as another movie?
I would love to see it. I would
Yeah.
love to see it. Yeah. And we really never we were dreaming up the possibilities while we were making the movie and really haven't stopped.
Yeah, I would look forward to it too. I think there's a lot of story that needs to be told, and I think it would be great to see on Hulu or theaters, wherever it is. I think it would be great. So, Dan, thank you
Yeah.
so much for your time. I really do appreciate it. Again, congratulations on everything, and continued success to you.